The rain came like a curtain drawn by God's own grief, drowning the plains in silver torrents. Each drop carried the scent of iron and pine, each gust of wind whispered of things lost. In the dim heart of a collapsing cabin, a woman sat motionless on the muddy floor. Her native brown dress clung to her like a second skin, soaked and heavy with defeat. Beside her, two boys huddled close, their eyes wide and hollow, too tired even for fear. The youngest pressed his small palm to her arm, whispering something she didn't hear. Her breath came shallow, her ankle grotesquely swollen beneath the torn hem of her dress. Lightning flared across the cracked window, and for a moment the whole world turned white. Then came the thunder, a deep, rolling growl, and the door burst open with a crash. A tall figure filled the doorway, rain streaming off his long leather coat, his wide-brimmed hat shadowing his eyes. Behind him, the storm raged, but his stillness carried more weight than the sky itself. "You're coming with me," the man said. His voice was steady, quiet, and absolute, like a law older than the town, older than the West itself. The woman looked up slowly, her hair plastered to her cheeks, her lips trembling. "We can't pay," she rasped. "Please. Just let us rest till morning." He took a step closer, boots squelching in the mud. "Rest'll kill you before the sun does," he said. His gaze flicked to her ankle, then to the boys, thin as fence posts, their eyes too old for their faces. Without another word, he crouched down and tore a strip from his coat, wrapping it tight around her injury. His fingers were rough and sure, but there was care in his movements, as though he'd learned tenderness the hard way. "You'll ride in the wagon," he said. "Storm's letting up." The woman hesitated. Pride rose in her throat like bile. "Why help us?" He met her eyes, rain dripping from his hat brim. "'Cause someone once helped me, and I never paid him back." Outside, a horse snorted impatiently. The man, Silas Crow, though she didn't yet know his name, lifted her as if she weighed nothing. The boys followed silently, clutching a frayed blanket between them. The air outside smelled of wet earth and smoke, and when Silas helped her into the wagon, the boards creaked like old bones remembering life. They rode through the night. The rain softened to a whisper, but the cold bit deep. Silas drove in silence, his broad shoulders rigid beneath his soaked coat. The wagon lantern swung with each rut in the trail, spilling warm light over his profile. Strong jaw, weathered skin, eyes that carried the kind of loneliness only time could carve. Naira, she whispered her name once to herself, as if reminding her own heart, lay half awake in the wagon bed. Each jolt sent pain through her leg, yet she made no sound. She watched the shadow of his back, steady as a mountain against the flickering glow. The boys slept with their heads on her lap, their small bodies rising and falling like twin breaths of fragile hope. At dawn, they reached the edge of a small town, Dry Creek. The streets were muddy veins winding through silence. Smoke curled from chimneys, and somewhere, a dog barked once, then stopped. As the wagon rolled past the saloon, faces appeared behind windows. Whispered words followed like wind through tall grass. "That the Giant Cowboy? Who's that woman? Look at those kids. Lord have mercy." Silas kept his eyes forward. The judgment rolled off him like rain off steel. The wagon turned down toward the river, to a cabin crouched among birch trees, its roof patched with tin and time. He stopped the horse, climbed down, and offered his hand again. Naira hesitated, her pride flickering like the last light of a candle. Still, she took it. His palm was calloused, warm despite the cold. Inside, the cabin smelled of cedar, tobacco, and something faintly sweet, loneliness perhaps, long steeped into the walls. He built a fire without speaking. Flames licked up through the logs, filling the room with a soft amber glow. The boys crept closer, their hands extended to the heat. Silas poured coffee into a tin cup and held it out to her. She took it, the steam rising between them like breath. "This ain't charity," he said finally. "It's what's right." Naira studied his face, the lines, the silence. There was grief there, deep and buried, but it had shape and strength. She nodded once. "Then I'll repay what's right." For the first time, Something like a smile touched his mouth. Not warmth exactly, but a crack in the armor. "Reckon you will." Outside, the wind sighed through the birches. The rain had stopped, but the world was still soaked in its aftermath. Naira's boys slept by the hearth, their faces peaceful for the first time in days. Silas stood by the door, looking out at the gray horizon. She followed his gaze and wondered what ghosts he saw there, what ghosts might find them both before morning. When their eyes met again, something unspoken bridged the space between them, something that wasn't gratitude or fear, but recognition. Two lost souls standing at the edge of what might, against all odds, become a beginning. And just then, from the far-off town, came the faint, distant sound of church bells. The hour was early, the world hushed, and yet that sound lingered, like a warning or a promise. The days that followed were carved in uneasy quiet. Dry Creek's gossip spread faster than prairie fire. How Silas Crow, the loner rancher, had taken in a native woman and her 2 sons. Some said he'd lost his wits. Others whispered darker things. Yet beyond the reach of town voices, by the river's bend, life began to hum again in faint, uncertain rhythm. Naira's ankle healed slowly beneath Silas's rough but patient care. He brought herbs from the hills, learned the tinctures she mixed from memory. In the evenings, the boys would chase fireflies through the tall grass while Silas mended fences or carved small wooden animals for their hands. Sometimes she caught him watching them, his gaze softening like dusk over water, then hardening again when he realized it. They never spoke of the storm that had brought them together. Some silences carried more honesty than words ever could. But under that quiet grew something fragile, trust born not from gratitude, but recognition. Both had been wrecked by loss, both had learned to keep living in its shadow. Then came the morning the peace cracked. Hoofbeats on hard ground echoed through the trees. 3 riders. Silas was already outside when they arrived, rifle resting in his arms, his eyes narrowed against the glare. Sheriff Boone led the group, his badge gleaming dull against his dusted coat. "Crow," Boone said, spitting in the dirt. "Word around town is you're keepin' company with a squaw and her bastards. Thought I'd come see for myself." Silas didn't move. "You seen it," he said flatly. Boone leaned forward in his saddle, eyes cold. "You forget who her people are? Red Rock bandits. Your brother died in their raid. Don't tell me you don't remember that." The world seemed to still. The wind went thin. Naira stood in the cabin doorway, her hand gripping the frame. The boys froze beside her, sensing the air's sudden violence. "My husband wasn't part of that raid," she said quietly. "He died trying to stop it." Boone barked a laugh. "That what she told you? They all say that, Crow. She's poison." Silas's jaw worked, his voice low and tight. "You said your piece. Now leave." Boone's smirk faded. "This town won't stand for it. You think talking her in makes you noble? You're diggin' your own grave." Silas raised the rifle a fraction, not aiming, just reminding. "Then I'll dig it on my own land." The riders turned, muttering, their horses kicking up dust as they left. The tension remained, thick as smoke. When Silas finally looked toward the cabin, Naira had vanished inside. That night, silence took shape between them again, but this time it had teeth. Naira sat by the fire, her hands motionless in her lap. "You should have let them take me," she said. "They were right. Your brother's death." "Don't," Silas cut in, his voice sharp, breaking through years of restraint. He set the rifle aside, leaned on the table, and spoke through gritted teeth. "You think I don't see it every time I close my eyes? But I'm done letting the dead tell me who to hate." She turned to him, tears brimming. "Then what are we now? 2 ghosts pretending we're still alive." He didn't answer. The fire cracked between them. By midnight, the wind had changed. Naira felt it before she heard it, the wrong kind of silence, heavy and alert. She woke the boys, her instincts whispering danger. Outside, faint light flickered against the windows, torches. Silas was already standing at the door, rifle in hand. "Stay with them," he said. Through the rain-soaked night, Sheriff Boone returned with his men, their torches spitting fire into the wind. "Step aside, Crow," Boone shouted. "You can save yourself yet. Hand her over." Silas stepped off the porch, his coat whipping in the wind. "You cross that line, Boone," he said, voice like gravel. "You won't walk back." Boone laughed, though fear trembled under it. "You'd shoot your own people for her?" "I already buried my people," Silas said. "Ain't burying another soul tonight." The first gunshot tore through the storm, grazing Silas's shoulder. The boys cried out inside, and Naira, forgetting fear, burst through the doorway. Rain slicked her hair to her face, but her eyes burned bright. She took up a fallen crutch like a weapon and stepped in front of Silas. "This home saved us," she said, her voice trembling but fierce. "You can't burn what's already been cleansed." Lightning split the sky. Thunder answered with judgment. Boone's horse reared, terrified, throwing him into the mud. The torches fell, hissing out in the rain. The mob faltered, scattered, swallowed by the storm. When it was over, Silas sank to his knees, blood mixing with rainwater. Naira knelt beside him, pressing her hands to his wound, her tears mingling with the downpour. The boys clung to her, their faces buried in her dress. As dawn crept across the wet horizon, the cabin stood intact, scarred, but unburned. Smoke rose from the dying fire inside. Naira bandaged Silas's arm while he watched the river swell with rain. Neither spoke. The silence now was different, vast and unbroken, but alive. "You should rest," she said softly. He gave a faint smile. "Can't rest. Got a home to fix." She looked at him then, truly looked, and saw not the man who had found her, but the one who had stayed. Somewhere deep in her chest, something fragile began to bloom. Outside, the birch leaves trembled under the morning breeze, whispering of forgiveness. Far off, church bells rang again, mournful, yet hopeful, as if the land itself remembered what mercy sounded like. And in that sound, for the first time, neither of them felt alone.